This is the Italian Citizenship Podcast, hosted by Marco Permunian and Rafael Di Furia. Hello and welcome to another edition of the Italian Citizenship Podcast. I'm Rafael Di Furia, here with Italian attorney Marco Permunian, and today we wanted to talk a little bit about making a claim for Italian citizenship directly through a great-grandparent. Well, maybe not quite directly. One of the reasons why we wanted to go over this specifically, even though we already have gone over the subject of Italian citizenship by descent, is that it seems as though the most common type of person that would be making a claim for Italian citizenship by descent would be the great-grandchild of an Italian ancestor. And so we wanted to talk about specifically what a person in that position would be required to do, what they would need for the process. But if you were making a claim through a great-grandparent or just a grandparent, for example, a lot of the information in this video will still be relevant to you. So Marco, let's start out with what is the first piece of the puzzle that a person would need for this process?
People applying for citizenship through great-grandparents are the most common category. So I would say that the vast majority of the people that ICA helps is people who are the great-grandchildren of Italian immigrants. So people who have great-grandparents who emigrated from Italy to the US. In the majority of cases, the Italian ancestor was born in Italy between 1880 and 1900. And to answer your question, the first piece of the puzzle would be the Italian birth certificate of your ancestor. So the first thing to do is to find out where your great-grandfather was born in Italy, because you need to have that information to be able to collect his birth certificate from the Italian municipality.
And what's the best way for a person to look for that information?
So most people will not have that information. So a few people will already know where their great-grandparent was from, but a lot of people will not have that information. So if you can't get that information from family members or relatives, you should start doing your own research. And the best way to do research is to use the many tools that are available, especially online. I'm talking about websites like ancestry.com or familysearch.org and many others, where you can kind of cross-reference all the information that you find on very many documents to try to determine where your great-grandfather was from. For example, the naturalization records will have, in most cases, the exact place of birth of the Italian ancestor, or draft cards or similar documents. Those will help you determine where your great-grandfather was born in Italy.
So that was actually, even in my own case, one situation that I went through that I think I've mentioned here on this channel, if not on my own channel, that when I was making my claim for Italian citizenship, I had a name of a place. We had always been under the impression that that was the name of the city or the town, the village that they were from. But later on, we came to find out that, yes, this is true, but it's not the name of the town specifically where we're from. It's the province that we're from, but not the town. So that's one thing that I think also is worth for people to keep an eye out for, is that sometimes that can be the case where where a town or a city that you might find may also be the province. So you may have to go beyond just the records of the town that you're looking in and go further out into the periphery of that area.
And another strange situation that I've come across is that sometimes the records that are available online will indicate the name of the town, but not the complete name of the town. And because some towns in Italy, their names are made up of two words, if the document that you have just indicates one of the two words, then you can't really be sure about which specific town your ancestor was born in. Or another thing that I've noticed is that sometimes the records available online will indicate the name of the town, but the name of the town was misspelled. So it actually requires more digging to find out what the person who took the name of the town really wanted to indicate on that document.
That's actually interesting you mentioned that, because I've noticed that there's a lot of towns around the country that will have very similar names to each other. It's just that they'll have the difference of maybe one vowel, like you have Merano and Murano.
Like we have like Villanova, there are like probably 25 towns with Villanova del Gebo, Villanova, another Marquesana, but that's in the north.
Or the other thing that a person may end up finding is that you will actually find exactly the same name of a village in various locations around the country. Not just one little simple letter difference, it'll be the exact same spelling. So that's another thing to keep an eye open for. So if you have any indication from those documents about roughly where your family might be from, that may help to lead you in the right direction of what town to go to or to search in. And moving on to the next part of the process, what would be the next document that you would say would be quite important for this process?
If you are applying for citizenship through a great-grandparent, the next key document that you need is your great-grandparent's naturalization record. So you need to show when exactly your great-grandfather, if you are applying through a great-grandfather, became naturalized. Because you will qualify for Italian citizenship, in most cases, only if your great-grandfather naturalized after his child was born in the US. So you need to collect his petition for naturalization, his declaration of intention, and his certificate of naturalization to show to the consulate when exactly he became a US citizen. And if your ancestor never became naturalized, you need to collect documents showing that he never naturalized. Generally, these documents are letters from the National Archives and the Department of State, meaning USCIS, the genealogy department, indicating that they have no record of your great-grandfather ever becoming naturalized. But because you're trying to prove a negative, those letters may not be comprehensive, because your ancestor may have naturalized under a different name or under an alias. So you're not proving 100% through those letters that your ancestor never naturalized. Because of that, generally you also have to collect documents indicating that your ancestor was an alien at the time of the birth of his child, a legal alien living in the US. And these documents are generally the first census record taken after the birth of the immigrant's child, and if available, the alien file, which is basically a file that the US government started to keep for every alien living in the country starting from the 40s. And something else to keep in mind is that if your ancestor became naturalized before July 1st, 1912, you would not qualify for Italian citizenship by descent, even if the naturalization occurred after the birth of his child. The reason being that the main citizenship law that we rely upon for citizenship by descent cases came into effect in 1912, and then it was modified in 1992.
And I know there are people who are going to be watching this who have ancestors that may not have stopped in the U.S. after leaving Italy, and may either still currently be in that country or their ancestor moved on to the next country. What happened quite often was that someone maybe went to Argentina or Uruguay or Brazil and then came to America and had their family there. What would be the situation for someone in that case?
So first of all, you have to make sure that your Italian-born ancestor did not become a citizen of another country, which could be the US or Argentina, or the country where he emigrated. You need to make sure that he did not become a citizen of that country before his child was born. And then you also have to make sure that each person in the Italian line did not become a citizen of a foreign country voluntarily before the birth of the next in line.
I know there may be some people listening quite closely to what you're saying because you keep referring specifically to a male ancestor. And so I'm sure there may be somebody thinking, what about if my great-grandmother left? Or what if I only know the information about my great-grandmother, but not my great-grandfather? For a female who gave birth to her child before 1948, you would be in a little bit of a different situation than the person who would be making a claim through a male ancestor. And for more information about that, you can check out our video about the 1948 cases for Italian citizenship. But moving on to the next part of this process, what would also be necessary to gather the information that would be necessary for a person's great-grandparent?
So, of course, if you are applying for citizenship by descent through a great-grandparent, the great-grandparent's records are not sufficient for you to make your claim. So you also have to prove your lineage. So you have to collect all the documents, starting from your great-grandparent down to you. So you need all the birth certificates, marriage records, and death certificates for all of the individuals in your Italian line, including yourself and your children, if they're minors, or if you have adult children, only if they are also applying for citizenship by descent. Because a lot of time I'm asked by people, is it sufficient for me to prove that I have an Italian ancestor? So do I just collect his documents? And the answer, of course, is no, because you need to also have all the documents that are like in between you, yourself, and your ancestor. So all of the vital record documents pertaining to the other individuals in your Italian line. And make sure you remember that if you are applying for citizenship through certain consulates in the U.S., also the birth certificates and death certificates for the individuals not in the Italian line, but that are married to the individuals in your Italian line, you also need their documents.
And this is something that interesting that you've just brought up that I think might be good to bring a little bit more attention to, because I know there's a big misconception about, why can't I just make a claim directly through my ancestor? And you are making a claim, like, why do I need all the documents of my parents, my grandparents, and so on? Why can't I just claim through directly? And because they need the
evidence.
Yeah, they need to check through every line to make sure. They need to check through each member of the line to make sure that you are actually the great-grandchild of who you say you're the great-grandchild of, because on American documents, they don't list generally who your grandparents are, maybe on an older American document, but I could be completely wrong about that. I've never seen it personally, but I've heard about older documents that may have something listed on there. But even then, that wouldn't be necessarily enough to prove who your great-grandparent is if your grandparent is listed somehow on your birth certificate.
That is correct. And actually, I believe most of the Argentinian documents list the grandparents, at least.
So beyond needing the birth certificate, marriage certificate, and death certificate for each of the generations of your ancestors, or your ascendants all the way down to you, what other documents, vital documents, might you need for this process?
So when applying for citizenship by descent, you also need your own personal vital record documents and the vital record documents pertaining to your family. And I'm asked a lot of times, why do the consulate need those documents? I'm referring to your own birth certificate, of course, but also your marriage record and all of your marriage records. So if you were married multiple times, you need all of your marriage certificates and all of your divorce records. Or if your spouse is deceased, you need her or his death certificate. And a lot of people ask me, why do I need all of those documents if I'm applying for citizenship through Ancestry? And the answer is that you are becoming an Italian citizen. So the Italian government needs to know whether you are married, divorced, widow, and you need to produce the documents that prove your marital status.
Specifically, this can be very important to make sure if they've been divorced multiple times and in the States have had multiple name changes, that this can actually make it quite complicated for an Italian consulate or municipality to be able to look through their documents, because they may or may not have the legal name changes noted anywhere else other than on their divorce decrees or so on. Anyway, I think this might be a good place to finish off for this episode. And if you'd like to see more content like this, be sure that you are subscribed to this channel for more updates about Italian citizenship. And if you have any questions about Italian dual citizenship, anything that we've spoken about in this video or anything that we've spoken about in any of our other videos, feel free to leave that down in the comment section below, and we may be able to answer that in an upcoming video. Anyway, I am Rafael Di Furia here with Italian attorney Marco Permunian, and thank you for joining us again. We will see you next time.
Thank you.
Later. See
Ciao.
ya.